Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Healthy Not Complicated podcast. I'm your host, Health Coach Kait, and today we are going to be talking about ketosis and why being in ketosis, why eating a low-carb or ketogenic diet is so effective for weight loss. Now, before I get into it, obviously that being in ketosis, eating a low-carb diet, can be very effective for weight loss, for improving insulin sensitivity, for improving metabolic health, for PCOS, but I don't think it's the only way. I don't think that people need to be in ketosis in order to get these results. Oh, hello. How are you doing? Is it very, very effective though? Yes. So I'm not anti-carb. I've spoken about this in previous episodes. I have eaten low-carb keto diets for years at a time. In general, I do still eat a mainly low-carb diet, but I target carbohydrates around exercise. And because I play hockey competitively, I'm doing a lot of exercise, so this does mean a few more carbs than what I've eaten in the past. But for most people who have goals of improving their metabolic health, becoming more metabolically flexible, burning more fat, if they have any issues with blood sugar, if they have type 2 diabetes, then yes, keto diets, ketogenic diets, being in ketosis, extremely, extremely effective, or at the very least, being smart about carbs. And I really want to dig into why keto is so effective for these conditions, for these symptoms in today's video. So if you are someone who is really struggling to lose weight and you're not sure where to start, maybe you have high blood sugar, you've been diagnosed as pre-diabetic, borderline pre-diabetic, maybe you have PCOS, and you've heard of keto, you've heard of ketosis, but you've also heard some scary things about it. Trust me, it's not that scary. We're going to break it all down in this video so you can figure out if it's maybe the right strategy for you. All right, so let's begin by talking about what ketosis is and how it works. So ketosis is a metabolic state where your body is using fat for energy. And explaining this in the simplest way possible, we basically have two energy sources as humans. We can use carbohydrates for energy, or we can use fat. Now, carbohydrates are a quick energy source. So when we eat something that's high in carbs, it's broken down into sugar. The sugar enters our bloodstream, causes our blood sugar to go up, and then insulin's released, and it takes the sugar from our bloodstream and brings it to the cells in our body to use for energy. So of course, if you consume something that has simple sugar in it, this doesn't take a long time to be processed and to enter your bloodstream, and your blood sugar is going to go up quicker, and that energy is going to get to your cells quicker. If you have something starchy, that needs to be broken down, so it's going to take a little bit longer. And this is why things like potatoes are sometimes referred to as slow carbs. Now, our body only has limited storage for carbohydrates. So if it's not used immediately for energy, then it's going to be stored in our muscles and our liver. And if our muscles and our liver are full, then it's going to be stored as fat. So our bodies can store about 2,000 calories worth of energy from carbohydrates. So if you haven't eaten carbohydrates recently, if your blood sugar is kind of stable and your body needs glucose for energy, then your liver will release it. Now, fat is our other energy source, and it takes longer to be broken down and longer to digest. It's a slower and more consistent energy source. And unlike carbohydrates, fat is metabolized differently, so it doesn't have any impact on our blood sugar. Our body will either use it for energy or it will store it as fat. And all the body fat that you have is stored energy. And you can have, even someone who's very lean has about 200,000 worth of calories stored on their body as body fat. So this means you can store a lot more fat as energy than you can carbohydrates. Now, because carbs are broken down quicker, they are a quicker energy source, and your body is always going to prioritize them for energy when they're available. Because think about it. If you've eaten carbs, if your blood sugar's gone up, that energy is right there and it's ready. Your body can use it quickly. As opposed to if there's no carbs coming in and your carb storage is depleted in your body, that's when your body will switch to burning fat instead. It's going to start pulling from your stored body fat, or if you've eaten fat, it'll use that first, but then it's going to start pulling from your stored body fat. But this does take a little bit more time, so it's not as quick And your body's only going to do this if carbs aren't available. So this is why if you're eating a high carb diet, you are going to be spending minimal time throughout the day in ketosis, if any at all. Of course, when we're sleeping, we're not eating, so it is possible for your body to burn through your stored carbs. And when you wake up, you're in low-level ketosis, even eating a high-carb diet. But just depends on how close to bedtime you ate, that sort of thing. Also, your metabolic health. So basically, when carbs are low in our diet and our body doesn't have the option to use them for energy, that's when we go into ketosis, which is the metabolic function where we're using fat for energy. Your fat is broken down into ketones, and this is where ketosis comes from. Now, for certain individuals, carbs will be the ideal fuel source, and this is where things like sports and athletic performance come in, because like I said, when you're exercising and you're in that anaerobic state, you need that fast energy because fat can't be broken down quick enough to fuel your body optimally. It can do it. You're not going to pass out. You'll be okay, but it's not going to perform at its peak. Now, this isn't most people though. Most people nowadays are overweight, have insulin resistance, have poor metabolic health, and they aren't exercising at an intensity that requires them to need carbs for performance. And this is the root of why so many people do so well on a low-carb diet. But let's get into that a little bit more. So why does reducing carbs, why does being in ketosis benefit weight loss? Well, the first reason is that when you're in ketosis, your insulin levels are low. So you might remember that when I was talking about how carbohydrates are broken down and cause your blood sugar to go up, insulin is the hormone that's released and takes the excess sugar from your bloodstream to your cells. So your insulin levels being high is a trigger for your body that there is energy from carbohydrates available. When there's energy from carbs available, your body isn't going to be breaking down your body fat because, like I said, there's energy available. So when you're eating a low-carb diet and you're in ketosis, there isn't excess sugar in your bloodstream, so your insulin levels are going to be low. And when insulin is low, your body goes, okay, there's no energy available immediately, let's turn to fat instead. So basically, insulin is the trigger for whether your body is in fat storage mode or in fat burning mode. Now, when we're insulin resistant, our insulin levels are constantly high. And this is why it is so difficult to lose weight when you're insulin resistant. Because with insulin resistance, your cells start rejecting the actions of insulin. They don't take in glucose as they should. So your blood sugar remains high when your cells should be taking it in. And your body notices it's high, so it releases more insulin, and then that extra insulin is able to jam it into your cells. And this is why in the early stages of insulin resistance, your blood sugar will look normal, but your insulin will be high. And this is because the excess insulin is able to keep your blood sugar in check. But after about 10 to 15 years, the excess insulin isn't able to keep up anymore. And this is when your blood sugar is going to start to rise as well. And that's when you're going to be diagnosed with prediabetes, type 2 diabetes. And this is why people who haven't had success with traditional dieting find success on keto, because they're insulin resistant and they didn't know it. And when they eat a keto diet, their insulin drops and they're actually able to use their stored body fat for energy. And this really is, I think, the main reason that it is so effective. The next reason is that eating a keto diet reduces your appetite. Ketones naturally suppress hunger. And I'm sure you've heard of exogenous ketones before. If you've looked into the keto diet at all, there used to be more people pushing it, or maybe I'm just not on that side of the internet anymore. There was one big MLM that used to push ketones. They must still be around. I used to see them a lot more though, because I'd have people sliding into my DMs trying to get me to join, which is a shame because exogenous ketones, they can have value. Like I just said, they can help to suppress your appetite. They can also provide energy before your body starts breaking down fat, so they can make it easier to transition to a keto diet. A lot of athletes have started using exogenous ketones for things like endurance sports, so like cycling, running, that sort of thing, where it's aerobic exercise, so they are burning mainly fat. Ketones can have value, but just don't buy them from an MLM. And I did a video. I used to do a bunch of different videos. I used to actually watch a lot of like anti-MLM YouTube videos, and then I kind of wanted to do one because of this company that was selling ketones. Obviously, it ties in with everything I do, promoting low carb diets and that sort of thing. That video is definitely still on my channel, but there were some people who were absolutely hating me in the comments. But it's so funny because you can look at the income disclosure statements for these companies and see how much people are making. If you don't know anything about MLMs, they're basically pyramid schemes with a product. So 99.9% of people in the company are making barely any money. And you can see this online through income disclosure statements. And then there's like one or two people at the top who are just making all of the money. Anyways, I'll link my video on the MLM up above if I can find it. It's definitely still on my channel somewhere, but man, I totally forgot about that. Anyways, back to today's topic. The next reason that keto diets are so effective for weight loss is that they help you to keep your energy more stable. Like I said, fat is a slower burning energy source, so it's more long lasting. When you eat fat, it's not like when you eat carbs and your blood sugar goes up and then it comes down. It's digested slower, your body burns through it slower, so it lasts for longer and you don't have that big crash afterwards. And of course, if you have more stable energy, if you're not craving snacks and that sort of thing, then it's going to be easier to stick to your plan and to reach your goals. And the final reason is that you're going to be storing less fat, because when you're not having these constant blood sugar and insulin spikes that you get with carbohydrates, your body is less likely to store excess energy as fat. Now, when you compare this to a standard diet that kind of has balanced macros or is higher in carbs and low in fat, like a lot of them are, your blood sugar, your insulin is going to be constantly spiking. And if you have any level of insulin resistance, which the vast majority of people nowadays do, then you're basically just spending a lot of time in fat storage mode. And of course, this is going to make it difficult to lose weight. How exactly do you do a low carb or keto diet? Now, there's a lot of different strategies and ways to do it. Some people count net carbs, some people count total carbs. Depending on the country you live in, different nutrition labels will have either net carbs or total carbs listed. I'm pretty sure, I think in Australia where I live, net carbs are already listed as the carbohydrates. If you're in the US, then you take the carbs and you minus the fiber, and that gives you the net carbs. And the thinking is that because fiber isn't digestible, it doesn't count as a carb, and fair enough. But I find personally, if you are going to track your carbohydrates, it's better to just stick to total. So in general, it's said to eat less than 20 grams of net carbs per day or 50 grams of total carbs per day in order for your diet to be classified as ketogenic and in order for you to get into ketosis. The reason that it's not zero is because zero carb is pretty difficult to achieve unless you're eating a carnivore diet. If you're eating a carnivore diet and you're not having any plants, you're just having meat, then yes, you can eat zero carbs. I do think carnivore can be effective. I've eaten a carnivore diet in the past. I had good results. But I think unless you have autoimmune conditions and you're really sensitive to plants, not everyone has to be that strict. You don't have to eat zero carbs. So if you are eating some low sugar fruit and non-starchy vegetables, that's when you want to stick to less than 50 grams of carbs per day. And that is what I generally recommend for people who want to eat a keto diet. You can increase this to up to 100 grams of total carbs per day if you're finding it really difficult to stay under 50 grams. If you're having 100 grams though, you might not spend as much time in ketosis during the day, which isn't necessarily a bad thing if it means you're going to actually stick to the diet, because that's going to be what's most important is consistency. So if you're finding it extremely difficult to eat less than 50 carbs per day, then bump it up to 100. This is a significant decrease from the standard American diet where people are having 200, 300, 400 grams of carbs per day. This is going to allow you to at least be in a fat burning state for some portion of the day, which is going to benefit you. Now, there is, of course, what's considered to be dirty keto and clean keto. Dirty keto is basically where the only thing that matters is carbs and staying under a carb limit. So they'll have a lot of processed food. I'm not a big fan of this because there's a lot of like sweeteners and other ingredients added to processed foods. that can impact our gut health. There are certain sweeteners that are technically 0 calories, 0 sugar, that still can spike insulin. So this is counterproductive. One example of a product that claims to have no sugar, claims to be keto friendly, but that absolutely isn't, and maybe they've changed their formula in the next couple of years, but Smart Sweets. I can remember seeing people do blood sugar tests on Smart Sweets a few years ago, and I think it was the chicory root. There was some ingredient in them that was causing a massive spike. You might as well just be eating actual candy at that point. But technically on the label, they had 0 sugar or 1 gram of sugar or whatever it was. So there's loopholes like that where companies can claim that their products are low in sugar and healthy, but they're actually not. Now, before we go any further, I want to take a quick break to talk about one of the biggest mistakes people make when starting a low-carb or ketogenic diet, and that's not replenishing electrolytes. This can lead to the dreaded keto flu, with symptoms like headaches, muscle cramps, and fatigue. When we reduce carbs in our diet, our bodies retain less water, and when less water is retained, fewer electrolytes are as well. That's why it's so important to replenish them. And replenishing them with a product that doesn't have any weird ingredients, added sugar, and that's keto friendly, like Sody's everyday hydration salts. Their premium electrolyte formula is designed specifically for low carb and fasting lifestyles, helping you stay energized and avoid the keto flu. Just mix it in your water and you're good to go. Head to healthcoachkait.com/Sody electrolytes to check them out. That'll be in the description box down below. And use code HCK15 at checkout to save 15% off your order. So I think sticking to a mainly whole foods or clean keto diet is going to be the most effective. It's going to be the most sustainable. It's going to be good for your body in ways that go beyond weight loss and improved insulin sensitivity. Your gut is going to thank you. And there still are so many foods you can eat. So in general, you want to stick to mainly animal protein at every meal. You want to be getting at least 30 grams. This includes like wild salmon and seafood as well. Basically, any meat or seafood is going to be 0 carbs. So you can really have as much of this as you want and be in ketosis. And protein is also extremely satiating and great for controlling hunger. It is very difficult to have too much protein. Now, beyond that, you want to make sure that you're having adequate fat. So if you are tracking, I generally recommend to match fat to protein gram per gram. So you should be aiming for 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight every single day. So if 140 pounds is what is ideal for your body, then you want to be consuming 140 grams of protein per day. It can be slightly lower if you aren't very active. And then you want to be matching this gram for gram with fat. Now, from there, you can add in your carbs. And like I said, you want to get these mainly from whole food sources. So non-starchy vegetables for the most part, low sugar fruit, avocado, olives, berries. And if you're still hungry after putting your meals together this way, then number 1, you're not eating enough protein. So check in with that first. And number 2, add more fat. This is going to help you stay in ketosis. Your calories are going to fall into place if you use this framework. And it really is just so easy without having to weigh or measure anything. Now, if this is your first time reducing carbs in your diet, it can seem a little bit scary, but I promise you, nothing to be afraid of. You can stop at any time. I have people ask me who haven't even started. They'll be like, oh, is keto okay long-term? Can you be in ketosis long-term? I'm afraid to start. And I'm like, well, at the end of the day, you can stop at any time. So it's not like as soon as you start, you're never going to be able to stop. And I know a lot of people kind of get a bit obsessive about it and worry about getting kicked out of ketosis and being in ketosis all the time. Again, you're missing the point. I don't even think that tracking ketones is necessary as long as you're using the framework that I outlined, as long as you're getting enough protein, eating enough fat, as long as you're limiting your carbs, then you're going to be in ketosis. And as long as you're progressing towards your goals, you're losing weight, your insulin sensitivity is improving. I have a video on signs that your insulin resistance is reversing that I will link above. If you're seeing these signs, then you know you're on the right track, but it doesn't have to be obsessive. You don't need to be in ketosis all the time. If you have a cheat day, if you eat more carbs, not the end of the world, just start again the next day. What matters is what you do majority of the time, not the minority. If you're striving for perfection, then you're setting yourself up for failure because no one can be perfect, and that shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be being consistent over the long term, because if you can build this into a lifestyle, then you're going to get the results and you're going to be able to maintain them. Now, also, if you're first starting out, electrolytes, so important. The keto flu, everyone talks about it. Well, not everyone, but I feel like it was bigger a few years ago. People were, all afraid of the keto flu. It's not that scary. It mainly happens because, one, your body retains less water and less electrolytes when you reduce carbs in your diet. This is why people will see that initial weight loss that's mainly water weight, lose like 5-10 pounds in the first week. With that water, they're also losing electrolytes, so that's why it's important to replenish. But also, when you reduce processed food in your diet, you're also reducing the amount of sodium that you're getting. And sodium is important. People eating a standard American diet, they don't have to worry about it because they're getting a lot in through their diet. But when you reduce carbs, so many people aren't getting enough salt, and this is when they can experience headaches, cramps, fatigue, dizziness, all those sorts of things. So sodium is really important, and that's why I recommend using a high quality electrolyte that's rich in sodium. Sodi is my go-to brand. I will mention it at some point in this video because they are the sponsor. I've been using them for years and years. They're actually an Australian company. They do ship worldwide, and they're actually based in Adelaide, which basically no one is. So that's really nice. They're great people, which is why I am such a huge advocate for them as well, because not only is their product amazing, but it's also made locally and they're great people. So win-win-win. And it's such an easy fix for a lot of symptoms that people experience when they first start keto. They just need more electrolytes. Now, another way that you can enhance the benefits and get into, I guess, a deeper state of ketosis is with intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting and keto tend to go hand in hand just because, well, when you're eating a keto diet, you are basically mimicking the benefits of fasting. Because if you think about it, when you're fasting, when you're not eating, no carbs are coming in, your insulin drops, and your body starts producing ketones and breaking down fat, which is the same thing that happens when you eat a keto diet. So that's why a lot of people will do like 16-8 fasting, where they fast for 16 hours a day and then eat all of their food within an 8-hour window. I do think that is a good strategy, but I don't think everyone needs to do that specifically. I think even having a 12-hour fasting window or a 14-hour fasting window can be beneficial. The intermittent fasting schedule that is generally promoted recommends skipping breakfast and then eating your first meal at like midday and then stopping eating at 8 p.m. But I think that a lot of people get better results when they shift their feeding window a little bit earlier. So they do eat in the morning and they just stop eating later in the evening, like 4, 5, 6 p.m. Because when you stop eating earlier, your body has time to digest the food that you ate before you fall asleep. And this allows you to shift into a restful state quicker and recover better. So I find that eating in the morning and then stopping earlier, it can be more beneficial, and it's also a little bit easier for people to stick to, because if you wake up early and you have to wait until midday to eat, especially if you're just getting started, that can be difficult. Now, I will say that your body, based on your circadian rhythm, it releases hormones for metabolizing food based on when you typically eat. So if you usually eat every morning at 8 a.m., then your body is going to have those hormones released at that time in anticipation of that meal. So this is why intermittent fasting can feel so difficult to start. But the good news is that if you push through that for a week or 2 weeks, then your hormones reset and they will be released at a different time. But you can also use this to your advantage. If you start eating consistently your first meal at 12 or whatever time you want it to be at, then your body will adapt to that. But anyways, I think I'm going to wrap this up here. I hope you guys found this helpful. This is just a little crash course on ketosis, on keto diets, on why they're so effective, why they're so great, why I'm such a huge fan, and why people see such great results. Now, I've been doing this podcast for maybe like 6 months now, a little bit on and off. Definitely missed a few episodes. And I want to hear from you guys. What do you want me to do an episode on? Because the concept of this podcast is that getting healthy, being healthy doesn't have to be complicated. So I've kind of been dabbling in a few different areas. Obviously, I specialize in insulin resistance and blood sugar, but I also do quite a bit of stuff regarding sleep and that sort of thing. But let me know if there's a specific topic that you would like me to cover. I find these podcasts kind of flow a little bit better if I don't know, if I have something that I have a lot of thoughts on that I can just kind of like wing it a little bit. This one, obviously, I feel like I have a lot of knowledge on low carb and ketogenic diets and insulin resistance, so I could kind of wing it. There's been a few in the past where I've kind of run out of things to talk about. I mean, I would like these episodes to be longer. I talked about this in my last one. I was like, I've just run out of things to talk about. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm not one of those yappers. I mean, I do like to talk, but apparently I can't talk endlessly. Anyways, just trying to get some more topic ideas and see what you guys would like to hear about. I could do more sort of like, I guess like hot topics and things that are happening in the news relating to health and diet and whatnot. But let me know in the comment section. I'd love to hear some suggestions from you guys. And if you have any other feedback on the podcast, I'd love to hear it too. But thank you so much for listening or watching. If you're on Spotify, please give me a 5-star review. I could use a few more of those. I'm really trying to grow a little bit on that platform. Obviously on YouTube, I have my like solid core audience, and YouTube is always growing. Spotify, I've just started there, so it's like a little bit slower and it's a little bit, I don't know, I haven't really cracked the code on how to reach more people there, so maybe some ratings would help. But thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.